Thanks for having me.
You elevated from representative to state senator in the last election. Congratulations on that.
Thanks. Although I call it the other house, not the upper house, because being a longtime House member, I respect that both of these parts of the legislature are co-equal. So
Sure.
I'll be looking forward to working with all those folks up there too.
Great. Let's talk about the budget outlook for 2013 in the state of Florida. Some of the analysts and economists say we could break even. Some say we could possibly have up to a $1 billion. Look on what you're hearing.
Well, right now we call it out there. We do have an expected surplus of anywhere between 400 million to, I haven't heard a billion yet, but I guess that'd be good news.
Yep.
But we also have out there the potential that if the pension reform, I didn't vote for it, but we call it reform for that, for purposes, that would cost say $1.3 billion to have to pay back that 3%. So that is looming out there as a potential to put us back into the red. And of course, we avoid the fiscal cliff to a certain extent. So that won't be as bad as what we thought it would be if the fiscal cliff actually occurred in full. But that's going to have an effect as well. So bottom line will likely be flat unless the pension stuff is overturned, in which case we have a lot of responsibilities in education and healthcare to fix a lot of the cuts that happened over the years.
So this was the state pension. There was a requirement that state employees pay 3% into their retirement fund, and the state employees sued the state of Florida, and it is pending before the Florida Supreme Court. Is that right?
That's correct. Basically, it was characterized as a reform to solidify the pension, but in fact, it just plugged the budget. What I mean by that is that all state employees, including myself, we pay 3% in for our pension, and then that money goes right into general revenue. It doesn't even go into the pension. And it was used in 2011 to help avoid that big pitfall that we had. And so there is an argument that violates the collective bargaining clause in our Constitution. And in fact, that argument has prevailed in the lower court and on appeal, and now it's before the Supreme Court. If they are victorious in that argument, then we'll see $1.3 billion have to be paid back, and of course that wipes away the surplus and puts us back into a deficit. So that will be one of the things to watch to determine what we're going to be able to fund over this next year.
What are the priorities if you talk to both Democrats and Republicans? They say that education will be a priority, funding education. If it were up to you, if you got to make the budget, what would you do?
I would plug the $400 million that was cut from K through 12 back in, first and foremost. I heard that overwhelmingly at the door, overwhelmingly in interviews and talking to a variety of voters and constituents, that was the single biggest issue for Florida state politics in this past election. And it's not just because it's an important issue to the voters, it's important for the future growth of Florida. Education will help this state move forward economically. It doesn't happen overnight with a snap, but over the next 10, 20 years, we have an educated population, we will have growth. If we do not, we will continue to have to pray that folks come in from out of state. So that would be first and foremost. And then second, I'd like to see that the universities get the $118 million they've requested so that we don't have to increase tuition for this next coming year.
What are your biggest concerns about the future of higher education? I know a lot of college students say you can't raise my tuition, you raised it the last few years, but comparatively, others would say that Florida's tuition is still pretty low compared to many other states.
It is, but we also have a lower standard of cost of living and lower salaries in a lot of other places. So when you look at New York or California, it's not really fair to compare them because they make a whole lot more money out there. And so, to me, it's also about my district. My district, a lot of working class, middle class folks, and they can't afford another tuition increase. So that doesn't mean that it's always off the table at any moment and we must protect it at all costs, but it does mean that we have to be very careful about it. And with this year, with the potential of having the money to get that $118 million so that we could keep our tuition the same, I think that's a goal that's worthy of pursuing, and it's one that I'm hopeful that we'll be able to meet this year.
What are some of the reforms you hope you'll see in education this year? You know, we have a bunch of new Democrats that were elected up there to the State House, and we have some Republicans who are moderating a little bit. And so the prospects for reform for education seem pretty good to me.
the strict FCAT system that we have right now. I do believe there's a place for FCAT, and it's evolving in the high school level to Common Core, which is more of a subject-based test, more of a national test. But I think that we have to use it better. First, we shouldn't be penalizing schools financially with FCAT scores. You're only making a bad problem worse. Second, I think that we need to use those results as well as when we have standardized tests to gauge improvement of schools. That whole system's also out of whack. Basically, a school gets their improvement results back in the fall for that year, and they're not able to improve. So I'd like to see fixes with that. But I have a lot of faith in our teachers and our administrators and our principals, where if we give them the money they need, I think they're going to continue to do a good job, if not a better job. But with regard to schools, another issue that we have to bring up is school security going into next
You
year.
know what? I was going to ask you about that. I guess squeeze in a quick commercial
Sure.
break, and we'll